Revenge films.
My name is Ashley, and my husband's name is Michael. We don't have any children. That being said, it's not because I was infertile or anything like that. It was because my husband had a difficult disease that had a high risk of being passed on to children genetically, and he had always decided that he wasn't going to have children. But I was extremely happy being married to Michael, and more than anything, my husband and I loved to entertain people. And it was always our dream to have parties in our home. Until now, we were living in an apartment building, and if we had such a party, then it would definitely have become a problem to our neighbors, and we weren't able to. However, we were finally able to build our home and purchase it, and once we moved, we were able to have some distance from our next door neighbors. Now that we had our dream home, we were also able to have our dream home party. Every now and then, we would invite our friends and family over and host parties. But then one day, at one of our parties, my friend Amy said something that took me by surprise.
Hey, I heard that Karen is going to have her engagement party here.
What? What are you talking about? I haven't heard anything about this.
Wait, really? Because I already had received an invitation in the mail. Of course, I'm sure there are other people who have received the paper invitation besides me too.
This Karen that she spoke of was one of our friends, but she had a tendency to have no manners at all, so I'd kept a distance from her. And that's why there was definitely no way that Karen would be hosting her engagement party at my house, and I thought it was strange. I decided to get to the bottom of it, so I went to Karen to ask her. But then, when I got to her house, she told me the most outrageous thing. As it turns out, in Karen's mind, my husband and I had already gotten a divorce, and the invitations that she had sent out to Amy and the others were meant to be for an engagement party between herself and my husband. I didn't even know where to start, and I couldn't wrap my head around anything. And on top of that, there was no point speaking to Karen about it because she was lost in that world. I actually knew Karen's family as well, so I was left with no option but to go and speak to her parents about it. I met her parents, and I told them that Karen was planning an engagement party to my husband without my knowledge, and I asked them to please try to stop her and set her straight. But then, her parents gave me an even more shocking response.
What are you saying? You were already left by your husband. You're no longer a part of the picture. And first of all, I'm sure Michael regretted marrying an ugly pig like you and having to deal with you as his wife. He finally realized how amazing our daughter is, so you better not get in the way of their happiness.
I was shocked that even her parents were behaving in this way. When it seemed that the situation had reached years of her older brother, I received a phone call from him. Karen's brother Kevin was a good guy, and he promised me that he was going to send Karen to a mental health hospital, and that he was also going to collect all of the invitations that had been sent out and deal with it. Things became scary for a moment, but it was all settled. As if. After that, I met with Karen's brother and my husband, and we met up at a pub and were discussing the situation. That was when I found out about all kinds of things regarding Karen. As it turns out, Karen was having multiple affairs with all kinds of families, and she was being sued from many directions. And yet, she was refusing to stop. And because of that, even her parents had gone mentally crazy. At that time, Karen started to say that she was going to marry my husband and that he had already gotten a divorce from me, so her parents were also thrilled. Truth be told, my husband was so good looking that I was no match for him. He was tall and handsome and dressed well, to the point where when he got married to me, people actually asked him why he got married to a woman like me. On top of all of that, he has a good salary as well, and that's why Karen's parents were thrilled that not only was she going to stop having extramarital affairs, that she was able to secure a marriage with a man like my husband. And that's why Karen's parents didn't want to let my husband out of their grip. But there was nothing to take out of their grip because he wasn't there to begin with. Kevin told us that he gave his parents quite the earful about it. Karen's brother must have heard from people that Michael and I were hosting parties at our house from time to time. And of course, the people who were coming to those parties knew that Michael and I were not divorced. And more than anything, they knew how close my husband and I were, to the point where a lot of people said that they were jealous of our relationship. Kevin thought it was strange that, like that, we would get divorced to begin with. And even though he asked around about the situation, he thought it was strange. And so he confronted Karen about her engagement. But then Karen exploded on him.
Wrong! Those two have been separated for a long time now. They had no relationship, and he's already promised to get married to me. That's why I sent out all those invitations. And first of all, there's no way that an ugly pig like her should have been his wife in the first place. She must have something on him holding him hostage. I saved him. That's all there is to it.
Apparently, that was her response. But he could see that her eyes were completely gone. That's why her brother immediately took her to a mental health hospital. He then explained how she was coming up with and spreading all of these lies and forced her to be hospitalized there. Karen caused quite the tantrum and commotion, but because the people at the mental health hospital were always dealing with people like this, they were used to it, and they took her in for examination. And then, Kevin told us that he yelled at his parents, telling them that what they were doing is something that could easily be sued, and he actually gathered some money to apologize to us and offered it to Michael and I.
I'm truly sorry for the trouble my family has caused you. I'm sure my parents won't get involved anymore. And Karen's also being held in a hospital room with a lock on it, so she can't get out without a doctor's clearance. So I think it should be fine now.
And he apologized deeply to us. Because her brother handled the situation so formally, I was able to accept this apology from his family, and I decided to go home that night. When I found out that it wasn't just Karen that was crazy, but her parents had also lost their minds, I was really worried about what to do about the situation. So I was really relieved and thankful that her brother was such a good person. For a moment there, I was really terrified. However, to tell the truth, this wasn't the first time that I was dealing with a crazy woman like this that tried to come after my husband and destroy my marriage. For whatever reason, my husband seemed to have this ability to make women fall madly in love with him. One day out of nowhere, I heard a pounding on our front door that wouldn't stop. When the two of us answered the front door together, there was a woman standing there, holding a baby that looked a few months old in her arms. She then said to Michael that the baby was his and asked him to get remarried to her. Of course, she also turned to me and said,
I'm like a useless woman like you that's infertile and can't have children. I know that Michael loves me way more. So Michael, hurry up and leave this house.
She was yelling in our front door, but in reality, I knew that there was no way this was true. Because my husband had already gotten a vasectomy so that he wouldn't have children, and Michael was actually the one that called the police and had the woman taken out of our home. My husband had actually told me when we were still just boyfriend and girlfriend that he had already gotten a vasectomy and would never be able to have children. Of course, I knew about that, but because it was a private issue, he hadn't told anybody else about it. Other than that incident, there was a time when we were newlyweds and we were still working at the same company when one of the women in the insurance department suddenly said to us,
Why on earth are you married to an ugly pig like that? Surely you should be married to somebody more beautiful and worthy of you. Don't worry, I'll bring someone to you that is a better match for you.
After saying that, she actually brought a young woman from the insurance company into our office. Of course, my husband very quickly rejected her and said that he had no intention of getting a divorce and asked her to please leave. But that woman ended up falling in love with my husband at first sight, and she became a stalker. She was stalking him about 6 months after that, and in the end, she even sent a baby to our company office. That was beyond belief, and we got the law involved, and the police went to the insurance company directly. The woman was sued by my husband as well as her company, and she was no longer able to come anywhere near him or me. For me, my husband treats me so well, and I know that he treasures me, so I wasn't hurt about it. But I knew that the rest of society really wanted my husband to get a divorce from an ugly pig like me. And it seemed like everybody also believed that the reason why we didn't have children was actually because of a defect in me. In regards to that, my husband is always apologizing to me about it and tries to make up for it. But my husband loves me more than I could ever imagine, so no matter what people say about us, I am living happily in my world with my husband. When my husband and I finally got to host our home party of our dreams, I didn't think that we were going to be roped into even more trouble. But despite all of the crazy people that we encountered, through these home parties, we were also able to make great new friends and meet amazing people. Everybody seemed to have a great time when they came over, and we also enjoy it, so we have no intention of stopping these parties either. In particular, there's one wealthy madam that we have gotten along well with, and sometimes she calls me and she says,
When are you having your next party?
I just received a few bottles of delicious wine, and I'll bring them to your next party. So let's drink them together. We also have a friend who owns a pub, and he always says,
I'll bring a couple plates over. Hope you're excited about them.
and we've been blessed with some great friends. These home parties that we had always dreamed of have also become a special place for people to connect and relieve stress. So I want to continue to treasure them. I know that there's still a possibility that we may get roped into trouble regarding my husband. But as long as I love my husband, and my husband loves me, I know that we can continue to get past any obstacles that come our way. I feel very lucky, and I'm already looking forward to our next home party with our friends. My name is Ashley, and this is a story from when I was still a college student. At the time, I was very introverted, and I didn't have many friends. Even in a big school, I was always quietly living my life alone as I went to and from classes. But I did have a hobby that made me happy, and that was baking and making sweets. Ever since I was a little girl, I didn't have many friends, and I was also an only child. I started baking when I discovered that it was a hobby that I could enjoy by myself. I was always meticulous, and that became my weapon, and I became good at it. Every now and then I would try to make something to give the few friends that I had, so I would bake something and bring it with me to college. Whenever I would do that, I would be in the cafeteria with juice in one hand and my baked goods in the other, and that must have been where a certain girl in the college named Karen had seen me. She must have watched me every time. There was a guy that was famous in the university for being good-looking named Jonathan. One day, I overheard Karen talking to him when it was close to his birthday coming up.
I'm really good at baking cakes. It's actually my specialty. So I'm gonna make a cake for your birthday, Jonathan.
She said to him with a smile on her face. Karen was really cute on the outside, and she was up to date with the current fashions and trends. She put a lot of effort into her appearance, and she was popular amongst all of the guys in the college. And that was when it became obvious that Karen was after Jonathan. To be completely honest, people like Karen and Jonathan were like a completely different breed from me. They were so out of my world that I brushed it off since it had nothing to do with me. However, that day after school, I was suddenly asked to meet by Karen, who I had never even spoken to before.
Hey, your name is Ashley, right? Why don't we make a cake together? You're good at it, aren't you? So, will you teach me?
She asked me out of nowhere. When somebody like Karen, who is so popular, was suddenly speaking to me, I was shocked. However, I was a little bit happy that someone like her knew my name and was talking to me. But then at the same time, I overheard her saying earlier that she was good at baking cakes and that it was her specialty. So I was wondering why she needed to learn from me if she was so good at it herself. The next day at school, Karen came over to me once again and she showed me a photo of a really fancy cake online.
This is what I want to make. You can do that for me, right? Thanks.
What? But I thought that we were going to make it together.
Oh, why not? What's the big deal? I mean, you promised that you would make it, right? So anyway, that's that. I'll leave it to you. We're going to have Jonathan's birthday party tomorrow, so you can just bring it there, and then I'll hand you the money for the ingredients later.
That was all she said to me, and then she left. I was shocked, especially since that wasn't what we discussed. But I enjoy baking, so I decided to agree and go ahead. A few days later, it was the day of the party. I was told that in return for making the cake, I was allowed to participate in the party. But I knew very well that it wasn't a place where somebody like me belonged. So I was planning on going home as soon as I handed the cake over to Karen. And then, as soon as I arrived to the party venue, Karen came running out of the door and grabbed the cake out of my hands.
Wow, it actually looks pretty good. I knew you were all right, but I didn't think that you were this good, to be honest. But you gotta keep this whole thing a secret, do you hear me? Otherwise, I can easily take care of somebody like you. A nobody who's just at the bottom of the class.
After she snatched the cake and said that, she tried to walk off and I tried to say,
What? What do you want now?
The cost of the ingredients? You told me that you would hand it to me later, so...
What? Are you serious? You actually believe that? Don't you think that for a loser like you should be grateful to have the opportunity to talk to the popular girl in the class like me? That if anything, you should be the one paying me.
As much as I enjoyed baking treats for other people, to be honest, the cake that she had ordered from me was a pretty big birthday cake. And in order to make it look as fancy as the photos she showed me from the magazine, I had bought all kinds of ingredients for it and spent hours on the cake. At the very least, I thought that she should at least reimburse me for the cost of the ingredients. However, without even saying a single word of thanks, Karen grabbed the cake that I made and walked right back into the venue. I felt stupid for believing anything that Karen said, and I was devastated and disappointed with myself as I started dragging my feet home. But at that moment, a friend from the college that I sometimes speak to saw me and called me out.
Ashley, is that you? You were coming to the party too?
What? No, just on my way home.
The venue is over here. Come on, let's go inside.
I didn't even have time to explain, and she ushered me into the party. When I got inside, I could see that Karen was just about to give Jonathan the cake that I made.
Hey, Jonathan! Look at this cake! I put so much effort into making it. I hope you like it. Try it!
As she said that, she pulled out the large cake from the box, and then I heard the voices from around the room.
Wow, that's so fancy. Did you really make that yourself?
It looks like a professional made it.
I heard voices like that echo throughout the venue, and Karen was proudly smiling from ear to ear.
Interesting. It's almost amazing that you can lie so easily like that.
What?
When Jonathan said that, Karen froze on the spot, and everybody else around went silent as well.
What are you saying, Jonathan? What lie are you talking about? I made this cake myself for your birthday, Jonathan, right? Isn't that right?
Karen then turned towards me as I was already inside and spoke loudly as if to try to get me on board. I could feel everybody in the venue turn their attention towards me, and their eyes were piercing, and I got so scared that I almost found myself about to say yes and agree with her. But before I could, Jonathan said,
You know, yesterday, I saw Ashley in the grocery store desperately running around buying all of these ingredients. And I saw all of the ingredients were in her shopping bag, and she was also holding this box.
Just because I asked her to go and gather all the ingredients for me.
Interesting. But you know, I actually overheard your entire conversation just now.
What?
You told her that she'd better keep this whole thing a secret, otherwise, what did you say that you would do to her?
When Karen heard Jonathan's words, she turned completely pale. She slumped on the spot and didn't even have the energy to retaliate. And then everybody around her started chiming in.
Does that mean that you were trying to take all the credit? You're the worst!
Now that you mention it, Ashley's really good at baking, and sometimes I see her bringing her baked goods to school.
People started cornering her, and Karen was no longer able to stand it, and she ran out of the venue. After that, everybody ate the cake that I made, and it was a huge hit. And then Jonathan walked over to me and said,
Thanks for the cake, Ashley. It was delicious.
I'm really sorry that it seemed like I lied about it.
Not at all. Either way, I'm sure that when I tasted it, I would have figured it out regardless.
What?
There was a time that you brought a cake to college for your friend's birthday, remember? On that day, I happened to walk by and your friend shared a bite with me. That was more delicious than any cake from a shop I've ever had. I would never be able to forget it.
That incident was over a year ago, and not only that, but probably only 2 or 3 minutes, and I couldn't believe that he remembered it. I was so surprised and so happy that I almost cried. After that, everyone came over and talked to me too.
The cake was seriously delicious. Thank you.
Everybody loved the cake and then thanked me, and then the party was over. The next day, when I went to college, as soon as I arrived, Karen stormed over to me, blazing red with anger.
Because of you, everything is a disaster. What have you done? What are you going to do about it? You need to take responsibility and fix this.
And she started yelling at me. I didn't know why I needed to take responsibility for her life. And first of all, she did this all to herself. But some of the students that had tried my cake came to the rescue.
You're the one that's going to bake the cake yourself, and you made Ashley make it for you. What are you saying?
That's true. I didn't know that you had such a bad personality, Karen.
And everybody else around her was looking at her coldly. Even though Karen was the most popular before, It wasn't only the girls, but all of the guys also didn't want to pay any attention to her anymore, and people started to shun her. In no time, she was stuck isolated from everybody, and I couldn't feel any pity for her. However, it wasn't the craziest part of the story. The most shocking thing came after this. Thanks to Karen's plan, to my disbelief, Jonathan came over to me one day and asked me to bake some things for him separately. And then he told me that ever since he tried my cake a year ago, he had wanted to have it again someday. I was really happy that Jonathan said that to me, but then he told me that he wanted to come with me to go buy the ingredients. I was really nervous, but we ended up going to the store together. After that, he ate the sweets that I made, and Jonathan said that he loved them so much he wanted more. Every now and then he would ask me to make him something, and half a year later, we naturally developed into a relationship. And then, currently, I'm lucky to say that he's my husband, and we live together in our beautiful home. Now, John and I have two of the cutest, sweetest children. The older girl just started elementary school, and ever since she has taken an interest in baking, and every day we make something together. I could never have imagined that Karen asking me to bake a cake for her and then lying about it would result in me getting married to Jonathan. But now I'm happier than I could have ever dreamt of. Oh, for the record, after that, Karen graduated from college without any friends. And I heard that after she started working at some company, she got married. But rumor has it that not even 1 year passed before she got divorced. According to what I heard from my college friends, when Karen heard that Jonathan and I got married, she was so angry that she just grabbed some random guy and got married to him. But that ultimately didn't go well, and it resulted in a divorce less than a year later. But of course it wouldn't go well. I couldn't believe that she would just pick up a random guy and get married to him. But it seems that ever since college, karma has gotten her, and she hasn't been able to find true love. But she did it all to herself, and I don't have any pity for her.
My name is Kevin Smith. I'm not married, and I live at home with my parents. I actually dropped out of high school, and for many years now, I've been working for a construction company. My salary wasn't that great, but I was supporting my parents who were living off of Social Security by living with them and paying their living expenses. I had a little brother who's 5 years younger than me, named Michael. My brother Michael was the complete opposite of me. He was good in school, graduated from a good university, got a job at a top-class company, and 1 year ago, he just got married. Michael was also doing well in his company, and even though he was the manager at a major company, he looked up to me more than anybody. The reason for that was because of the influence of an incident that happened when my little brother was still in middle school, and I was in high school. I was never that good in school, and I never had exceptional grades. However, when I first started high school, I was planning on graduating just like anybody else. I had the dream of getting a job at a good company, so I studied hard and had the goal of going to university and getting my degree. However, that changed when I was a junior in high school, and my brother had started middle school. Even though my brother had always been a nice kid and got along well with my parents, when he hit puberty, he became a completely different person and started acting up. He started getting involved with some bad kids at school, and it wasn't uncommon for him to get picked up by the police. He was out of control, and my parents didn't know what to do about it either. But then one day, my little brother, who was still in middle school, got into a fight with a couple of high school kids. He was being jumped by them, and I just so happened to come across that by coincidence. In high school, I was actually on the boxing team, and in order to protect my little brother, I took on all 5 high school guys who were there and sent them all to the hospital as a result. Of course, regardless of what the reason was, it didn't change the fact that I heavily injured some other students. Because of that incident, I was expelled from my high school. I had to give up all my dreams of going to college, and instead, I decided to try to get a job. When that happened, my little brother felt the weight of the responsibility of it. That was when everything changed. He stopped hanging out with the bad kids at school, and he became more serious about his studies. He started putting his all into getting good grades. I always rooted for my little brother, and since we weren't a very prosperous family, I continued to work hard. With the money that I earned, I was able to continue paying for Michael's school fees and to pay off his student loans. As a result, I was able to go to a good university and graduate, and he was able to get a job at a major company. Because of that incident in our past, it brought my brother and me closer together. He developed a deep respect for me, and he was like my best friend. However, a few years later, a person appeared in our lives who would try to destroy that, and that was my brother's wife, Karen. My brother's wife didn't know the whole story about our family situation, and so she was always calling me Michael's stupid brother, who was a high school dropout, treating me like an animal. Because my brother had a very calm personality, he would tell his wife that she was wrong and tried to ask her to stop saying those things, but he never raised his voice with her or got angry. However, every single time that I would see her, she was very clearly rude to me and me only. She had such a bad attitude with me, and I couldn't help but to be irritated by that sometimes. But things escalated one day over the New Year's holiday. My brother and his wife and our relatives were all gathered together at my family home. My brother's wife got drunk that day, and there in front of everybody, she started to say the most outrageous thing.
But, I just don't get it. How is it that Michael is so brilliant and amazing, and your older brother is a high school dropout idiot?
Hey, Karen, cut it out!
You're a high school dropout. You're single. You have a low salary. The guy like that isn't worthy of being here.
Is that so? In that case, I'll excuse myself. There's no need for that. Hey, Karen, you've had too much to drink. You need to apologize to my brother.
You know, I've always thought this, but there's something wrong with your brother. It's almost funny that you thought that you would be able to live a good life after dropping out of high school. You're already 30 years old. You're still not married. And you're living off of your parents. Don't you think that that's embarrassing? I'm so embarrassed that somebody like this is my brother-in-law, that I can't tell anybody about my own husband's family.
However, everybody who was there all knew our family history, and the reason why I had to drop out of high school. And as I looked around the room, everybody's faces were scrunched with anger. I didn't want to ruin the holiday gathering any further, so I thought it would be best if I left, and I got up from my seat. But it was at that moment that my calm brother suddenly raised his voice. That's enough, Karen! The room instantly went silent, and my brother's wife's jaw dropped as she was at a loss for words. Do you have any idea why I was able to graduate from college? Do you have any idea who to thank for this life that we have right now? If it weren't for my brother, I would have remained a delinquent throughout school, and I don't even know what would have happened to me by now. As he started saying that, Michael started to explain to his wife just how much I had done for him over the years, until he was able to get a job at his current company. On top of that, he went on to yell at his wife, explaining to her why her words were so heartless and horrible, not to mention stupid. His anger was obvious as he was yelling at her. Nobody had ever seen him like this before, least of all his wife, and he was yelling so loudly that she looked like she was about to start crying, and she started apologizing.
Okay, I get it. Calm down, please. I didn't know, so you don't need to get that mad about it. You never told me.
Just because you didn't know doesn't mean that you could say such terrible things to somebody! After saying so many horrible things that are so hurtful and rude, you seriously think that you could get away with it by saying you didn't know?
Okay, I get it. I'm sorry. That was my fault.
You're the one who should be excusing yourself! Get out of my parents' house!
You don't have to take it that far, do you? Fine, whatever. I'll leave.
His wife threw a tantrum, and she stormed out of the house. After that, Kevin came back down from his anger. He felt bad that he ruined the party, and he started apologizing to all of the relatives. This is all because of me. I'm really sorry for ruining the mood, even though we were all getting together for the first time in years. To tell you the truth, ever since we got married, Karen has become a completely different person. She judges people based on their income and their educational background, but she wasn't like that before. I didn't know that. And you know what? It's been troubling me for some time now.
You should have talked to us about it, so we could help you.
But after today, I think I've reached my limit. I'm thinking about getting a divorce from Karen. It turns out that my brother had divorce on his radar, and he'd been considering it for a while now. But because it had only been 1 year since he got married, He was having trouble talking about it with family, but after the commotion today, everybody saw just how bad of a person his wife was, and not one person there objected to Michael's desire to get a divorce. If anything, everybody supported it. For the rest of that evening, everybody was understanding of the situation, and we were able to have a great time. After Michael's wife left, we ordered takeout, and the family party continued late into the night. After Karen left, I felt like my brother was more himself, and he seemed in much better spirits. A few days after the holiday, Michael must have told his wife that he wanted to get a divorce, because suddenly, one day, Karen showed up at our house.
Good evening.
Yes, coming. Oh dear, Karen.
Hello, Mrs. Smith. Is Kevin home right now?
He is. Kevin, it's Karen. She's asking for you.
You're asking for me? What do you want from me?
I'm terribly sorry about what happened the other day. I was drunk, and I said so many rude things to you. I wanted to apologize.
You're going to try to blame it on the alcohol? You had a bad attitude with me from way before that. And if I remember correctly, how many times have you called me the idiot brother and high school dropout?
Well, that's...
Well, it's fine. As long as you feel guilty about it, I'm not the type to hold grudges anyway.
Thank goodness. Well then, I have a favor to ask you in that case. But can you please talk to Michael and convince him to stay with me?
Convince him?
After the family party, Michael started saying that he wanted to get a divorce, and I don't know what to do. But I'm sure that if his brother that he loves so much tried to convince him otherwise, he would rethink the divorce.
I was wondering why my brother's wife had such a change of heart and was apologizing to me, but it turns out it was because she wanted to ask me for a favor. And, judging by that attitude, anybody would be able to tell that she wasn't actually feeling regretful about what she did. To be honest, I didn't think that my little brother would be able to live a happy life if he stayed married to a woman like this. So, I told Karen that this was a problem between the two of them, and I refused her request. But then, as if to show her true nature, this time, she started to get angry and raise her voice at me.
But why not? Don't you realize that your little brother is going to become a divorcee? And how embarrassing that is for your family? And plus, we just got married and received so many gifts, and we're going to get divorced not even a year later? That's ridiculous! And you know, you're the only person that can stop this!
My mother was still standing there, and she and I were so fed up with Michael's wife, who was such a roller coaster of personalities, that we had to force her out of our house that day. After that, no matter how much time passed, Michael's wife showed zero intention of accepting the divorce. And left with no other options, Michael went to his in-laws and exposed everything to them. He not only told them about the things that Karen said and did to me, he also showed them the evidence of messages that she had sent about me bashing my background. Kevin told me that his parents looked really uncomfortable as they deeply apologized to him. As it turns out, she always had a very two-faced personality, and her family has had to deal with problems because of her in the past. Michael was able to get the help of his in-laws, and finally, Karen signed the divorce papers. When Karen got married to my brother, she had resigned from her job and became a full-time housewife. Because of that, with the sudden divorce, she was left with no choice but to desperately go and find a job. However, with such little experience, she wasn't able to find anything, and so, she ended up trying to go back to her previous company. But those colleagues at that company didn't like her because of her bad personality. And on top of that, before she resigned the first time, apparently, she had gone around to multiple employees and demanded that they give money to celebrate her wedding. And because of that, she wasn't even able to get a job back at her previous workplace. She had been bragging to all of her friends that she married a good catch and become so arrogant that when her friends found out that she got divorced, apparently, not one person felt sympathy for her. And just like that, my brother's ex-wife was left with nobody around her. She persistently tried to get Michael to take her back, and she started camping out in front of his house to wait for him to come home from work. No matter how many times he told her to stop, she didn't. And so, eventually he had to get the police involved. With the police, he was able to get a restraining order on her, and she was no longer legally able to come near Kevin. Now that she finally stopped stalking him, I don't know what happened to Karen after that. but I can already imagine that she's living a sad, lonely life. As for my brother, after his divorce, he had even more motivation and focus towards his work, and in his company, he gained an even better reputation than before. Even at such a young age, he continued to get promoted, and his salary only continued to increase. After going through so much difficulty the first time he got married, I hope that the next time he meets somebody, that there's somebody who truly loves him for who he is. And I can only continue to pray for his happiness. For the record, as for me, I ended up falling in love with one of my brother's colleagues, who I met at his wedding. I got married when I was 32 years old. After getting married to a woman who works at a top-class company, I didn't want people to say that she was out of my league. So from now on, I'm going to work even harder to be a good brother, son, and husband.
My husband and I met at work. As we helped each other out as co-workers, we slowly fell for each other and started dating. My husband is way too good for me, and I have no complaints about him at all. However, his mother and sister are very different from him. When I first met his mother and sister, I learned that these two are very crazy people. His mother and sister completely ignored me when I first met them. Because of that, my husband and his father scolded them. At that time, I thought that because of the first impression they gave me, they will bully me when I become an extended member of their family. However, that was just the beginning of the hellish drama that was going to happen. After that, I learned that my sister-in-law had feelings for my husband, something more than friends. My sister-in-law then told me,
"You're not a good fit for my brother. You should break up immediately."
She yelled at me in front of everyone. At first, I thought that she had a brother complex disorder. After a while, my sister-in-law visited us and stayed for the night. She acted weirdly, such as lying in my husband's bed and wearing only a thin shirt without any bra on when she got out of the shower. She was trying to lure my husband's attention. That's why I realized that she is attracted to her older brother. I learned later on that my husband's birth father and my sister-in-law's birth mother remarried after they got divorced from their previous partners. Therefore, my husband and his sister are not related by blood. My sister-in-law likes her brother as a romantic interest. My mother-in-law is the birth mother of my sister-in-law, and my father-in-law is the birth father of my husband. I heard some weird stories about step-siblings before, like how my sister-in-law feels for my husband, but I never thought that something like that would happen to me. So honestly speaking, I was shocked and disappointed. I didn't know what to do at all. However, no solution came to mind, so I decided to stay as far away and as less involved with my sister-in-law as possible. After that, preparations for our wedding proceeded steadily underway. Apparently, my mother-in-law is aware of her daughter's feelings towards her stepson. That even though the two are step-siblings because she married my husband's father, my mother-in-law is plotting to marry her daughter and her stepson. I guess I understand why both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were very cold and rude to me when I first met them. My husband told me that he had already graduated from high school and was already living on his own when his father married his stepmother. After learning that her stepson works at a huge company and makes a lot of money, my mother-in-law thought that she wanted him to marry her daughter. Of course, my husband and my father-in-law were aware of this. I feel pity for my husband because his stepsister looks at him weirdly, but she doesn't seem to give up on my husband at all. It seems like it was my mother-in-law's plan for my sister-in-law to sleep in my husband's bed. At the engagement party, my mother-in-law said to me and my parents,
Marissa, you are going to be a member of our family from now on, so you should prioritize us. You need to think of us first. I will not allow you to talk back to me or resist me, and you should always obey what my daughter says. Also, you need to send us $1,500 every month.
My mother-in-law brazenly said those words to me and my parents, so my husband and his father immediately scolded her. That's the attitude that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed us the whole time, so we ignored them while our wedding preparations progressed. But of course, we couldn't keep on ignoring them until the wedding, so we sent them the wedding invitation. That's when my sister-in-law planned to ruin my wedding. To my shock and my horror, my sister-in-law was wearing a white, mermaid-type wedding dress at my wedding reception. During the parents' speeches and the exchange of vows, she was wearing a purple party dress. While I was preparing backstage together with my husband and the staff, I'm so nervous and excited. My sister-in-law was watching us from behind the pillars. We were all very shocked when we saw my sister-in-law.
What in the world are you doing?
My husband pressed.
Why are you marrying this woman? I don't know what you see in her. I'm way prettier and sexier than her. I understand you better than her. She doesn't deserve you. I should be the one getting married to you. We're not birth siblings, so we can get married, you know. Mom approves of us.
My sister-in-law shouted. I thought that it was very bad, and since the wedding reception was about to start, we had no choice but to let the staff deal with the situation. By the way, I learned later on that she auctioned the dress. My sister-in-law imagined that she was the one who was going to show up at the reception instead of me. But we managed to handle the situation for the moment. But then my sister-in-law went back to her seat, still wearing the white dress. My parents and the other guests were murmuring about what was happening, while the staff ran towards her and desperately tried to get her up from her seat. While my father-in-law was enraged about his stepdaughter's behavior, my mother-in-law cheered on her daughter.
You're very pretty, dear. The white dress looks better on you than on that woman.
She praised her daughter and disrespected me. Then, having enough of the shenanigans, both my parents stood up and said,
This is beyond insanity!
They sternly scolded her. Then my mother-in-law responded.
Huh? What are you complaining about? There is no law stating that one is not allowed to wear a white wedding dress. As a guest at a wedding, she can wear whatever she wants to wear. Leave her alone!
My mother-in-law lost her temper. Then, just when I thought that my sister-in-law finally stood up from her seat, she grabbed the microphone from the MC's hands and desperately said,
Will you marry me? It's not too late. I am more beautiful and sexy compared to that woman. Why did you even choose to marry her? I can make you happier.
That's what she said. The venue was in chaos. Many of our relatives were pissed off, so they walked out the hall and went home. My parents apologized to everyone left in the hall. As for my father-in-law, he scolded his wife and stepdaughter. My husband and I planned this wedding for months and months together. We even added some extra options to make sure our guests have a great time. But everything is ruined by those selfish idiots. Because of them, our wedding ended like a nightmare that I don't ever want to remember. Of course, both my parents were very worried about me getting married to him, but they understood that my husband didn't do anything wrong and that he is not the problem, but his mother and stepsister.
We don't dislike you, but frankly speaking, I think your stepmother and stepsister are crazy! That is why I will not allow you to marry my daughter if you don't cut ties with those crazy people. Are you prepared to cut ties with your crazy family?
When my father asked him that question, he immediately answered yes. My husband's stepmother and stepsister are women from his father's second marriage. So when I think about it, they are just strangers. I think that's why he was able to easily let go of his relationship with them. My parents didn't ask him to cut ties with his father at all. Then after that, my husband went to his parents' house in order to cut ties with his stepmother and stepsister. The two delusional women were very happy to see my husband. Then my sister-in-law said,
You broke up with that woman for me? I am so happy!
Apparently she hugged my husband, but then he shoved her aside and declared,
I don't want to be your step whatever! I don't even want to see your faces anymore!
Huh?
My sister-in-law was shocked by the words that came out of my husband's mouth, so she froze for a second. But my mother-in-law said,
What are you saying? She is your precious family. Are you okay? Why are you acting like this all of a sudden? What did that woman feed you to suddenly say strange things? You broke up with that woman to be with my daughter, right?
You're absolutely wrong! I've had enough of the two of you! I don't have any complaints regarding my father, but I don't want to get involved with either of you ever again! I'm going to cut ties with you! I've already made up my mind, so you can't convince me to change my mind!
My husband firmly responded. Then my sister-in-law went mad.
No, that's not true. Tell me it's not true. I can't believe that you're being threatened by that woman. Don't believe her. She's an evil woman who is just using you for her gain.
My sister-in-law didn't want to believe the truth. Then my father-in-law showed up and told his wife.
Sign this up for me.
My father-in-law showed his wife the divorce paper. My mother-in-law was shocked and confused.
Wait a minute. What are you saying, darling? Why would you possibly want a divorce? Don't do this to me.
It's not just because of my son. It's because I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't love you anymore. I can't continue being married to someone who purposefully ruined my son's wedding. You even tolerate your daughter's irresponsible behavior. I can't be with you anymore. I just can't. Let's get a divorce.
Hearing those words from my father-in-law, my mother-in-law freaked out and went mad. She tried to cling to my father-in-law and held on for dear life, but apparently my father-in-law's mind was already set. Actually, after the wedding reception, my father-in-law went to my parents' house and apologized for what happened. My father was looking forward to my wedding, so he shouted at him in anger. But despite that, my father-in-law accepted that, and he continued to apologize and ask for his forgiveness. Seeing how my father-in-law was sincere about his apology, my father apologized in the end for how he reacted. But hearing that, my heart ached for my father-in-law, who was asking for forgiveness for something he didn't do. However, when I heard that my father-in-law was getting a divorce from his wife, I somewhat felt relieved for both me and for my family. Because my father-in-law getting a divorce would mean that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law will be strangers to me, so there is no need for me to see them or deal with them in the first place. My husband was also on board with his father's decision. Just as expected, both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law disagreed about the divorce. However, with the help of an attorney, they were able to finalize the divorce. My mother-in-law never imagined that she would get divorced, so it was extremely shocking for her. Because of that, instead of looking for a new partner, she became pale and hopeless, and she lost the will to do anything. As for my sister-in-law, she was happy that she could now marry my husband, because they're not family anymore, they're strangers now. However, my husband told her,
You're not my younger sister anymore, so I will not get involved with you anymore. Don't you ever come near me again.
My husband made sure she understood what he said and not get delusional again. Because of that, my sister-in-law lost hope, just like her mother. Rumors say they are living like cripples now. But those two selfish women ruined my wedding, and frankly speaking, I'm truly happy that I don't have any relations with them anymore. Karma finally gave them what they deserved. My name is Ashley Smith. I had been working hard at my job for years, to the point where I had been promoted to the chief of my department. As an adult, I had been blessed with my job and work relations. However, on the other hand, I had the worst luck with men. I was starting to think that I may never be able to get married, when right at that time, I met my husband. After we met, we both fell in love with each other, and things moved quickly and we got married. I really think that being able to meet my husband Jonathan was the most lucky and best thing to happen to me. My husband was working at a well-known company in the same region, and at that time, he was in charge of a big project as the project lead. We were able to have our wedding ceremony, but because we were both so busy with work, we weren't able to take enough time off of work to be able to go on a honeymoon. Even if one of us was able to take some time off, the other would get too busy. And time went on when we weren't able to find the same time that we would be able to take an extended trip. We thought hard about it, and we decided to plan for a year and to set a date 1 year from now that we would both take time off of work to go on our honeymoon. When I discussed it with my company, they were understanding and gladly said yes because during that year, we'd be able to plan and staff accordingly as well. Over the next year, on our days off of work, my husband and I discussed in detail where we would be going on our honeymoon, as well as the exact plan. Originally, we were planning on going overseas, but to be honest, we both actually flew overseas a lot on business trips for work already. But since we lived in Japan, and we love Japanese food the most, we both agreed that traveling around the country over the course of a few days would be the best plan. And so, once the plan was all set, all I could think about was my honeymoon, and I worked extremely hard to make sure that I would be able to take those days off. Knowing that the honeymoon was going to be a year from now, I was able to focus on my work and produce great results. And by the time the honeymoon rolled around, both my husband and I were able to take the days off comfortably. After pushing back our honeymoon to the year later, we were actually able to be in a better situation in our jobs, and we were able to take more days off of work than we had originally planned. And so our honeymoon was going to be a full 10 days. Finally, we were able to depart for our honeymoon. The weather was amazing, and compared to the weather in other places overseas, we were much more used to the climate in our home country, and we were able to enjoy the vacation to the fullest. We thoroughly enjoyed all of the local food in that region before we headed back to our hotel for the night. As we were relaxing at the hotel, reminiscing on the day and playing games together, Suddenly, the doorbell rang to our hotel room. We hadn't ordered any room service, and because this wasn't our home or anything like that, we weren't expecting any guest. We weren't sure who it could possibly be, but when my husband went to go and answer the door,
"Oh, sweet Jonathan, let me stay with you for the night."
to our shock, it was Jonathan's mother. We were far from our hometown, and not only that, but we were at a hotel. And on top of all of that, we were in the middle of our honeymoon, and yet we couldn't understand what our mother-in-law was doing there and how she appeared, and the both of us went into a mini panic. According to my mother-in-law, she tried to tell us that the vacation that she had planned just so happened to be at the same location, in the same hotel, but both my husband and I were shocked. Of course, when we were going on our honeymoon, we had given both of our parents our itineraries so that they wouldn't worry. So of course, she knew the dates and location of our trip, and yet she was trying to say it was a coincidence, which was ridiculous. To make matters worse, she turned to me and said,
"Oh, Ashley, I didn't know that you were here."
I was about to lose my temper with her, but before I could say anything, Jonathan jumped in.
There's no way that you would come to a place like this by yourself for a vacation. I bet you came here with a friend anyway, so hurry up and go back to your hotel with that friend.
"I already parted ways with my friend because I was planning on staying here with you tonight. So let me stay with you guys in your room tonight."
Are you kidding me? So, you had a vacation planned, and yet you hadn't prepared a place to stay for the night. Surely that wouldn't be the case, would it?
"But Jonathan, there's no way that you would ever say something so terrible to your mother. I bet Ashley is telling you to kick me out, isn't she? How awful. I can't believe this."
You're one to talk, barging into your son's honeymoon and destroying it. Anyway, I'm not going to let you into this room, so you need to leave and go and find yourself another hotel.
"Don't say that. That makes me so sad. Your mom knows that you're a really sweet boy, Jonathan, and Ashley has changed you."
Jonathan closed the door on her, but she was raising her voice and causing a commotion outside of the door. When things quieted down, we were relieved, but then we received a phone call from the front desk. As it turns out, she was begging the front desk to open our door because even though she was trying to get our attention, we weren't responding, and she told them that maybe we were dead. I was starting to reach the limit of my irritation at her ridiculousness, but Jonathan took the phone for me and started speaking with the front desk.
My wife and I are currently in the middle of our honeymoon. There's no way that any parent would show up at a time like that, so whoever that woman is a fraud. Please, send her away.
Next, my husband picked up his phone and called his father and demanded that his father come and pick his mother up immediately. That was when we found out that his mother had told him that she was going on a vacation with her friend before she left the house. And then, so that she wouldn't get caught for following Jonathan and I to our honeymoon location, she had told her husband that she was going to a different place. When my father-in-law found out that my mother-in-law had barged into our hotel on our honeymoon, he was furious. I could hear how angry he was on the other side of the phone, and he reassured us that he would come straight away to collect his wife. This was still the very first day of our honeymoon, and we still weren't that far from our hometown yet. We were only about 2 hours away by car on the highway, so I wouldn't take long for Jonathan's father to come. After that, Jonathan's mom kept trying to beg and plead with us to let her into our room, but my husband stood his ground and refused. In the end, during those 2 hours, it was an endless circle between the front desk, my mother-in-law, and us. As time went on, finally, my father-in-law showed up at the hotel. As soon as he arrived and saw her at the front desk, he lost his temper with her.
Never in my life have I heard of a parent who tries to join their child's honeymoon! We're leaving, now!
He tried to grab his wife and drag her out, but then my mother-in-law pushed him off and said,
"I know that Jonathan made a reservation at this hotel to spend time with me here. This trip is supposed to be for me and him, so I'm not going anywhere."
She tried to refuse to leave, and in the end, Jonathan's father had to physically drag her out of the hotel. Thankfully, he was able to get her out and into the car, and Jonathan and I were finally able to regain some peace in our room. However, at that time, I had a certain realization. When we were deciding on where to go for our honeymoon, in the beginning we had considered going overseas, when we were over at Jonathan's parents' house and telling them about our ideas for the honeymoon. At that time, my mother-in-law was strongly against it, saying that going overseas would be too dangerous. I thought that she was genuinely worried about our safety in saying that, But now that I think about it, that was all part of her plan. My mother-in-law didn't even have her passport, so if we went overseas, she wouldn't be able to follow us. And that was the reason why she tried to stop us from going overseas. When I realized that, I was at a loss for words. Once my mother-in-law left us, my husband and I were able to enjoy the rest of our honeymoon, and we made the most of the remaining days. Towards the end, we bought a lot of souvenirs and brought them back. Of course, we brought the souvenirs back to Jonathan's family home as well, but when we arrived, his mother-in-law looked like a ghost. According to Jonathan's father, after that he heavily lectured his wife for what she had done, and he demanded that she stay out of our lives from now on. If she doesn't listen, he told her that he wouldn't hesitate to kick her out of the house. On top of that, he explained to her that any parent that would try to barge in on their child's honeymoon would normally result in having all ties cut off between them. And he also lectured her that she better be thankful to me for being so kind-hearted that I was willing to forgive her for what she had done. My mother-in-law had been a full-time housewife her entire life, thanks to Jonathan's father working hard for his family. So, she knew that if her husband tried to divorce her now, that she would not be able to survive. She was already quite old, but on top of that, she had never worked a day in her life, so it would be pretty difficult for someone like her to find a job and support herself. That's why my mother-in-law had no choice but to abide by her husband, and now she was no longer able to get involved with her son that she was obsessed with. But to be honest, it wasn't only once or twice that I found it creepy and weird how my mother-in-law would interact with Jonathan as if he was her lover. Jonathan was always quite cold towards her, and yet my mother-in-law would never back down. And I had always thought it was frustrating. But now that that was solved, I felt relieved. When we came back from the honeymoon and got to their house, as soon as Jonathan's mother saw me, she muttered out loud,
If it weren't for you, I could be together with my sweet Jonathan. You're no match for my sweet Jonathan, you ugly pig.
We could all hear her saying that, but his father quickly cut in and said,
I'm prepared to pack up your belongings at any given moment!
His mother went pale and she ran away. And that's probably because Jonathan's father knew that the biggest punishment to his wife and the thing that would cause the most emotional damage to her was to cut off her ability to have any interaction with Jonathan. When she first showed up at our honeymoon, I was shocked. But in the end, we were freed of my mother-in-law's incestuous love, and I felt a big weight lifted off of my shoulders. Thanks to that, we no longer have to worry about her barging into our home either, so I'm really thankful to my father-in-law. I did once ask my husband that, even though that's what his father was saying, whether he would actually kick his mother out of the house. But apparently his father had no mercy.
He would, and my mom knows that. That's probably why there's nothing she can do about it.
As long as my mother-in-law didn't try to do anything crazy again, she probably won't show up here. But even if she did, she would get an immediate red card and be kicked out. So I don't think I'll have to be seeing her anytime soon. My name is Michelle. I'm 25 years old. I got married about 1 year ago to my husband Kevin, and I live together with Kevin and his mother at his family home. I don't have any children. My husband, Kevin, was 10 years older than me, and we actually met for the very first time at a singles party in our hometown. At the time, I was still quite naive, and I was also in a rush to get married and feeling pressured that I wasn't able to meet anybody. And that's why, when I met Kevin and he told me that he owned a business, I completely fell victim to his words. He seems like he had a nice personality, and more than anything, he was older, and he looked like he also had money. That became the deciding factor, and when Kevin asked me out, I happily said yes, and we started dating. However, not long after we started dating, I came to learn that the company that Kevin owned was actually a teeny tiny caterer that was in the outskirts of town. Even though he said he was a CEO and business owner, it was only a title that he had. In reality, his mother was doing everything in regards to the business, and Kevin didn't have any rights or power in this business at all. And this mother of his was quite the harsh, strict woman, and she was terrifying. Before Kevin and I got married, I went over to visit his family house a number of times, but every single time I did, she would have something to say about my manners or that I was doing something wrong. And she was endlessly lecturing me about what I need to fix and what I need to do if I was going to marry into her family. When I think about that now, I really wish that I had listened to my gut back then, and I am full of regret that I went along with it. And that's because as soon as I got married to Kevin, his mother started using me in every way, like her own personal slave. Before I got married, I was working as a preschool teacher, and I loved my job. But when I got married, I resigned to marry into Kevin's family, and I moved into his mother's house to live there with the two of them. However, from the very first day that I moved in, it was already hell.
How late do you think you're going to sleep in? You need to hurry up and get up. Get dressed. We have a lot of prep to do for today's order. Now, get to it.
I was shaken awake by her loud voice at 4 o'clock in the morning. The night before, she hadn't told me anything about waking up at that time. And first of all, she hadn't explained anything about the work to me either. I was lost and confused, and yet it was a hurricane of insults from her.
I can't believe that you would sleep in from your very first day of work. What a lazy little girl you are. Ugh, no, that's not how you do this. Have you never even cooked before? How can you be so useless?
You're new, aren't you? I heard you married into the family. Are you going to be okay?
What? Am I going to be okay? What do you mean by that? But then the elderly lady that worked there then told me the most shocking thing.
I'm actually going to be quitting. Today is my last day here. So that means that you're going to be here by yourself from now on.
According to what the lady told me, apparently this company was an unbelievably terrible working environment. And even when they would be able to hire somebody new, they wouldn't last long at all. And so, until now, they've been making it work with Kevin, my mother-in-law, and this lady. However, the elderly lady had fallen ill, and she went to put in her resignation, but Kevin's mother demanded her to stay until they were able to find a replacement. That's why she was staying here and working hard until I came into the picture. When I heard that, everything suddenly made sense to me. Ever since we first started dating, Kevin was always in a huge rush to get married, and he was extremely insistent about living with his mother and refused to budge on it. They must have scoped me out as a source of labor from the very beginning. The situation was way too much, so I tried to complain to Kevin, but he only came up with excuses, defending his mother, and the conversation was pointless. In the end, the conclusion was that I would help out until they were able to find somebody new. But it was obvious that my mother-in-law wasn't even trying to find a new employee after they've got me. And after all that, from that day forward, they used me like a slave every day without giving me a single day off. When I got married, I was thinking about getting a part-time job with short working hours so that I could earn some money that I could use freely. But I didn't have any time for that whatsoever. Instead, I was being worked from early morning late into the night without any breaks or days off, and I was really being treated like a slave. I tried to speak to my mother-in-law about it, but I wanted at least a small salary for working there, but she became furious with me.
Don't you realize that marriage is a labor contract? You married into this family, so this is all a given. Who do you think you are asking for money?
And she refused to let me have any say. As days like this went on for about a year, by that point my unhappiness exploded. I can't take this anymore. I've had enough of this life.
Come on, like I said, you only have to do this until we can find a new person. If you don't work for us, then it's going to put our entire family business in trouble too.
That's what you keep saying, but you're not even trying to look for a new person, are you? That's it. I've had enough. I lost my temper at that point, and I proceeded to gather up all of my belongings on the spot and ran out the door. I decided to go back to my family home. My parents had actually passed away a couple of years before already, but the house that they were living in was still standing, so I decided to go back there. I finally felt like I had some peace. However, that was disrupted when a few days later, Kevin and his mother came barging into my house together.
Are you kidding me? Do you think that you can run away from this? You need to hurry up and come back and get to work. What do you think you're doing?
She came in with so much force that, to be honest, I was really shocked. If I was there by myself, it was very possible that I may have lost my mother-in-law's pressure and been dragged back with them. However, the person that came to my rescue at that moment was my little brother, Jonathan. Jonathan was studying to become a lawyer, and he was actually a law major at a very famous university nearby, going to school from this house. When my mother-in-law came at me, he dealt with her very well for me.
Sorry, what's your problem? Barging into our house all of a sudden like that?
What do you mean, what is the problem? This idiot left all her work and ran away from her duties. That's why we're here.
From what I've heard, it seems that you were using my big sister under quite the working conditions, weren't you?
And what about it? Marriage is a labor contract. Although I'm sure for a little kid like you probably wouldn't understand that yet.
My mother-in-law was looking down on Jonathan and completely underestimating him, thinking he was just some stupid little kid. However, at that moment, there was a sparkle in Jonathan's eyes as he calmly responded.
After making her work that much, surely you're paying her proper wages, right?
What are you talking about? She married into this family, so of course she should be working for free. It's a family business.
But you said it yourself, didn't you? That marriage is a labor contract?
That's exactly what I said. She's the wife, and she married into this family, so it's a given that she should be working for the family that she married into.
But again, you said that it's a labor contract, right? Do you know the meaning of the words labor contract?
Huh? What do you mean?
If it's a labor contract, then of course that means that wages should be paid. Do you understand that? Those are words that you've spoken for many years now, aren't they? So surely you understand.
What? No. But it's not like there was any real contract that was signed or anything like that, so...
What? You haven't signed any contract between the two of you? Well then, in that case, that's already against Labor Law Article 15 and breaking the law. That can result in a fine punishable by up to $3,000.
What? Fine? Punishable?
If that's the situation, then that means that all of the hours that Michelle has worked since she got married means that they're all unpaid wages at this point. And unpaid wages can be collected within 3 years by law. So Michelle has the right to collect all of those wages from you.
What does that mean? No. It's a misunderstanding. So no, it wasn't a contract.
Oh dear. That's not what you've been saying earlier, though. You do realize that I've been recording this entire conversation, right? So this time, are you telling me that that was a false testimony? And plus, you over there, you're not free either. Perhaps this could fall under plotting an illegal marriage scam. It would be possible to prove that from the very beginning, you only saw Michelle as a labor force, and that your only intention of marrying her was not out of love, but to put her to work. What did you just say? What is that?
At that moment, I had never been more amazed by my little brother. He was seriously so cool. Thanks to the fact that my mother-in-law was nonchalantly using the word labor contract all the time, it actually completely gave us the upper hand in this situation.
Are you kidding me?
My mother-in-law started to go crazy with anger, and she started to throw a full-blown tantrum in our doorway. But the entire time, Jonathan remained calm and responded with logic and reason, and that was really entertaining to watch.
You idiot daughter-in-law! You're a useless piece of crap. You really got some nerve trying to go against me. Who do you think you are?
And that is an offense of contempt. That would result in detention or fine.
Shut up! Take that! Take that!
Ouch! And that's assault. That will result in a prison sentence of up to 2 years, or a fine punishable by up to $3,000.
Ugh!
Watching my mother-in-law and Kevin screaming and panicking like wild animals, and Jonathan responding to them calmly with logic and reason, was honestly like watching a comedy act live. However, that wasn't the end of it. My mother-in-law then started taking the most unbelievable action. She must have gone completely crazy and was no longer able to deal with reality. And to our disbelief, she stormed into our house and started setting fire to our family altar in the house.
This is all your fault for giving birth to a daughter-in-law like this! How dare you leave behind trash like this and die, leaving me with that garbage? You better burn in hell and take responsibility.
Mom, what are you doing? You're taking it too far! Stop!
What are you doing? That's our family altar. Jonathan, the police! Call the police! I immediately grabbed a bucket of water and was able to stop the fire, so it didn't turn into anything worse. But the way the two of them had gone so crazy at that moment was truly terrifying. Moments later, we heard the sirens and the police came running into the house, and my mother-in-law and Kevin were both taken in. After that, we took them to court, and all of the unpaid wages over the last year were quickly acknowledged by the jury, and the judge demanded that those wages be paid to me immediately. Since Jonathan had been recording the entire interaction at our house, my mother-in-law was also charged for contempt, assault towards Jonathan, and for lighting a fire to our family altar in the home, and she ended up being placed behind bars. I heard she's eating terrible food and in prison right now. As for Kevin, he was let go due to insufficient evidence against the marriage scam, but I heard it was hell for him after that. Upon his return home, without his mother as well, the incident with his mother spread throughout the town, and his clients terminated their contracts with him, and business instantly took a fall. Kevin really shouldn't have, but he ended up putting his hands on consumer finances and black market money to make ends meet. And I heard he ended up going bankrupt, carrying a massive amount of debt. According to the rumors I heard, apparently it was taken away by some scary-looking people, and they said that he might be sailing off in the wide ocean somewhere.
Hey! Stop slacking and put some more effort into it!
Yes, sir.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.